Could you outline what the Global Maritime Access Policy is and the key drivers behind its formulation?
Essentially, Jokowi, the new Indonesian president, Joko Widodo is his formal name, he's made Indonesia's maritime geography the centrepiece of his policy agenda. So part of the Maritime Access Doctrine is about increasing awareness of Indonesia as an archipelagic state, but it's also about the defence of Indonesia's maritime sovereignty. So those kind of concerns are the centrepiece of his policy agenda, and particularly investment in maritime infrastructure. So it's the centrepiece of the policy agenda. It's also, you could understand it essentially as a developmental agenda or developmental doctrine. And I think the geopolitical component of it, which is important, is that the government's asking Indonesia or Indonesians to reconceptualise Indonesia as an archipelagic state located at the crossroads of the Pacific and Indian Ocean, or at the centre of contending major power rivalries. So there's essentially 5 pillars to the Global Maritime Access Doctrine, which is in Indonesian Poros Maritim Dunia. The first one's essentially about, as I said, about rebuilding Indonesia's identity as an archipelagic state and awareness of Indonesia as an archipelagic state. It's about also the economic development of Indonesia's marine resources. It's also about the key part of it that the Jokowi government's interested in is about developing Indonesia's maritime infrastructure and connectivity. So that's a huge part of it, and you see the government pushing for economic diplomacy, and recently gone to Japan and China seeking investment, which they're after about $7 billion for maritime infrastructure investment. And I'll talk about that a bit more later. The other thing is a greater emphasis on maritime diplomacy through Indonesia's foreign policy. So it's looking more to the Indian Ocean, how to maximise Indonesia's national interests through multilateral fora like the Indian Ocean Rim Association. It's about utilising maritime diplomacy to settle maritime disputes and maritime security challenges. And the last component of it, the fifth component, is increased spending on Indonesia's, or building up Indonesia's maritime capabilities. So essentially, under this policy, Global Maritime Access Policy, Jokowi has committed to, and there's a caveat on this, committed to an increase in defence spending from 0.82% to 1.5% of GDP. He wants Indonesia's navy to be and it's not just navy, I might say, it's the tri-service approach, to be a maritime power of consequence in the region. So the only thing about that, it's contingent upon achieving 7% growth rates, and at the moment Indonesia it has about just over 5% GDP growth rate. So it's aspirational. It remains to be seen whether it can be achieved. On the drivers, there's 2 principal drivers: the economic and the strategic. The first economic driver is Indonesia needs more foreign investment to develop its infrastructure. It has inadequate infrastructure. For example, the Jakarta main port in Indonesia, it's known as Tanjung Priok in Jakarta, that handles 2/3 of Indonesia's trade. So Jokowi wants to attract foreign investment. He wants to build maritime infrastructure and connectivity through a series of sea or ocean highways, and developing connectivity, roads, rails, ports. And there is no doubt that China's creeping encroachment in Southeast Asia's Asian states' exclusive economic zones is some of the strategic rationale behind the Global Maritime Access Doctrine. So that's where you see enhanced defence spending on naval and air capabilities, and a willingness or greater imperative for Indonesia to protect its maritime sovereignty and territorial integrity. After all, Indonesia is the world's largest archipelagic state. Neighbours, I think the Foreign Ministry's done a fairly good job of informing neighbouring states of this new policy, and and sort of, managing tensions. I mean, there was a very critical editorial in the Bangkok Post a couple of months ago on this new policy. The $10 million question here, of course, is will Indonesia sink and burn and destroy Chinese vessels fishing illegally in its waters? So far, Indonesia's only detained Chinese vessels. Around 24 have been detained, and they have not been destroyed. Now, this, if Indonesia was to pursue that action, it would bring a lot of pressure from Beijing to bear on Jakarta over this issue. I mean, there have been a number of confrontations between Indonesian maritime security agencies, including Indonesian Navy, a naval patrol boat, with China's fishing fleet. And so far, the Indonesians have backed down. They've backed down. So this is a key test of Jakarta's resolve on this question. Indonesia's committed to an increase in its defence budget, not just naval and air budget, from 0.82% to 1.5% of GDP. And as I said before, that's contingent upon 7% growth rate. So it remains to be seen if Indonesia can achieve these enhanced capabilities. What I would say is that Army's done very well, actually, out of increasing defence budgets and procurement policies in recent years. Some of the hardware that they've ordered and taken possession of include 100 Leopard tanks, infantry fighting vehicles. Some of them are domestically manufactured, ANOA APCs, armoured personnel carriers, and they're acquiring 8 Apaches and also multiple launch rocket systems. So they've done pretty well out of defence budgets. The other thing it's important to remember with this focus on maritime defence is that it's not just Navy that's needed to defend the archipelago. It'll be the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army. So you see a move towards a combined arms approach and greater mobility of military assets. So Army will certainly still have a role in the defence of Indonesia's island chain. I mean, in international relations terms or parlance, this is the classic security dilemma that the region's facing. Indonesia feels insecure and enhances its military capabilities, and that makes other states feel insecure. I don't see this as particularly an issue with Indonesia. I think states are mindful of, particularly, as I said, not so much a threat, neighbouring states, not so much a threat from Indonesia, but more so from China, as I spoke about before, and that creeping encroachment into the exclusive economic zone, which Jakarta's been monitoring very carefully. So China's assertive actions in the South China Sea have certainly been a driver of procurement decisions. Indonesia will be acquiring 3 diesel-electric Changbogo class submarines in collaboration with South Korea, but I don't see that will necessarily escalate tensions with neighbours. I mean, I think Indonesia is seen as a responsible international actor. It's committed to the Maritime Global Commons and international law. So I think for neighbouring countries, including Australia, a stronger Indonesian military, but not a belligerent Indonesia, but a more assertive Indonesia and a more military capable Indonesia, not a belligerent Indonesia, is quite good news for the region because of Indonesia's pivotal importance in ASEAN and strategic location.